Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Alasdair. How are you?
I'm very well, Sam. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad it is another week. I've had a very busy week. Normally, Wholala, we've been so good lately. Dear listeners,
We've been so good.
We've been so good. We've been recording like a week in advance. We've been getting everything ready, making sure we have good quality content for you. And I'm so glad that we did, because last week, Mama Mother Goose, it was a busy week for Miss Sam over here.
It was crazy. Poor you. I had a fairly calm week, and you were over there like voice notes me, "Hi, babe. I managed to have a bit of a lie-in today," and it would be like 4:20 a.m. You'd be like, "Yeah, I'm finishing a bit later tonight, but I should be done by midnight. Thanks for posting on the socials today." And I'd be like, "That's okay," as I like move from my bed to my desk to start my day of work. You did a real, as I would have said last week, like a lollipop lady, you did a real honest week's work.
It really was an honor. I feel like I earned my paycheck last week. No, I was on a shoot up in the Midlands and it all went well. It was really good. Like literally nothing to complain about. It was just such long hours. And you're right. I would like get back to my hotel at like midnight, be like, yeah, it wasn't too bad today, just like a little bit long. But I was very, very grateful for you because you really steered the ship with the editing and post last week, which I was very, very grateful for.
I was having a lot of fun. It was like, I won't have time to post about Billie Piper's birthday. I was like, my time to shine.
I know.
Let me dig out the archives and find all my favorite Billie pics.
I literally, to be honest, I normally, for you guys listen, do the birthday posts, and this month has just been crazy for me. And I messaged out, so fully knowing like what I was doing. I was like, I don't think I'm gonna have time to do Billie's birthday. And you were like,
this is such a peek behind the curtain of how Wholala operates.
I know. I mean, we've always
You're
said
not meant to know who does the birthday party. It's a trade secret.
It's not a fun memory. And I mean, the fun didn't stop. I came back to London on Saturday just in time for the trailer to come out, and you were like,
"Oh yeah,
right,
and
trailer's out, baby."
Oh, I thought it was out at like 10 past 7, and then at 6:15, you rang me. You're like, "Did you see it?" And I was like, "What do you mean?"
Well, this is the thing, because
So
I waited like a quarter of an hour, and I thought you'd message me, and I was like, okay, I'll just call him. I'll just call because I want to just talk about what I've just witnessed. And you were like, "Hey, babe, what's up?" And I was like, "Have you?" I was like, "What did you think?" And you were like, "Of what?" And I was like, "The train." And you're like, "It's out."
Yeah, I was really, really shocked. You know what I will say critical of the trailer, because we've had enough hype? The music is far too loud. Far too loud. The dialogue, there's a line in it which is like, what happens next? Spaceship comes crashing down to Earth, and all you can hear is I was like, sorry, say it again? No wonder they put subtitles on the social ones so prominently, because you can't hear shit.
The subtitle one was the one that I saw first. I'm afraid I wasn't watching live on BBC One in the middle of Strictly Come Dancing. I did see it on Twitter first. I thought so too. I was a little disappointed we didn't get the air dates, because we're now like, 2 months away from it airing?
We need to plan.
We need to plan. Everyone needs to plan. When am I in? When are they doing the Gallifrey Cabaret around the episode? What if, I genuinely fear that this will happen, what if Gallifrey Cabaret is on the same day as it airing?
Then we're going to go right up to the RVT staff and we're going to say, do you have a bloody TV license? It's quite important. And do you have somewhere quiet afterwards that we can sit? Because we're going to have to work out how urgently the Wholala fan base needs like coverage, because there are accounts that will, they'll have a video up night of, like an edited what you missed on the night of, and I fear that's not really our bag to do something that rapid. Same night is incredible turnaround.
I can see us having a little viewing party, and then what I think will probably happen is we'll plan to have a call the next day, record it, and then try and get it out as soon as we can, like, to that.
It would sort of ruin the vibe of the view party if we were like, everyone out. I need to record.
Yeah, I think that's what I can see. I can see us watching on, I'm assuming, a Saturday, recording on Sunday, trying to get it out at some point between Monday and Thursday.
Violently hungover after our Doctor Who viewing party.
Listen, to rein it back to today, because we're getting very excited about what's to come.
We are.
The reason we wanted to do this Here's What You Missed on Who series is because a lot of Doctor Who fans, to be quite honest, myself included, petered off Doctor Who as they got a bit older, and as we went on into the 12th and 13th Doctors, maybe. You can boo all you like, it's true. And we want to make sure that you guys are filled in on what you might have missed, so that you can arrive at the 60th anniversary specials fully up to speed with what you missed on Who.
Yeah, that's true. We want to give you at least like a very superficial understanding of what happened when you dropped off, and actually for me a very useful recap of what I missed. As someone who watches Doctor Who for fun, if you haven't been here since 2017, I think it is high time for a little recap of the bits you missed.
I always forget how many people joined Doctor Who later in the revival. Like, you and me are, I don't use the word purist, but we've been there certainly since the beginning of Russell's era. And I think that when I got to this stage in my life, I was like going out of school and going into college and then eventually going into like university. And there were a lot of changes in my life. And I also saw a lot of things that I really connected to in Doctor Who world peter away. Like, they stopped making so many action figures and they stopped releasing so much merch. And I feel like it didn't get as much promo. And this was the stage in my life that I've spoken about on the podcast before, where I feel like I kind of was made to feel like, okay, now's the time you grow up and you leave childish things behind, and like Doctor Who is one of those things. So I even though I watched his era the whole way through, I definitely sort of like wasn't on the hype train as much as I had been. Yeah.
I would put it on, I remember in uni, I remember watching at least a couple of episodes with my housemates, flatmates in third year, I want to say. And I can't remember which episode it was, but there was one that was not good. And I think it just had that, like, if you're not a Who fan, it was really like, what the hell is going on? Like, is this for real kind of stuff? And it was like, no, but like, yeah, but in a kind of, you have to, but you don't get it. It's part of it. It's, yeah, but you don't take that seriously. And yeah, no, I know that was, okay, fine. Like, ignore
it's a
that
lot
effect.
of like, okay, I know it was bad, but
yeah, it was bad, but it was it was funny bad, guys. It was funny, right? Like, and it was a lot of like, no, I hated that. Like, I couldn't get into that, and I was like, and I remember finding that a bit like cringe to watch with people. I like, you know,
it felt like you were like letting them into a secret, like a secret, like a guilty pleasure.
It was embarrassing to. Oh, did I just say that? Confessional.
You said it now.
It was at one time in my life. This is how I felt. Look, listen, you know what? I'm not going to back down.
No,
I'm not going to back down about it, because I do a podcast about it now, so I can say this. I, at one time, felt embarrassed to put Doctor Who on the TV.
Yeah.
There, I said it.
That's
it was
fair.
a time in my life, though, listen, where I wanted to be cool. Everyone wants to be cool in uni. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to watch cool TV. Mm-hmm. And everyone liked cool Netflix shows. And then at some point in the week, I'm like, hey guys, can we put on BBC One? And then you just get kind of like the weirdest hour. And I think a lot of Doctor Who out of context especially is quite odd to be thrown into. But yeah, there was a lot of ups and downs, I think, in this era.
Mm-hmm. I see. Yeah. No, completely. I felt the same. I felt like, I remember getting the DVD for Class when that came out, which would have been like 2017. I didn't watch it like live. And I think probably for that reason that I was at uni and I didn't really have anyone to like watch it with me. And I remember like saying to my housemates, I was like, okay, I'm going to go in my room for a bit. They're like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, oh, nothing. I'm just like, hanging out. And then like binging the entire series of Class and thinking it was not
so
great.
Suspicious.
We're not going to talk about Class in this episode, even though it is within the 12th Doctor's era. But it's definitely something we need to revisit at some point. Now, for anyone who maybe has never seen this era or doesn't know how it came about or hasn't maybe seen it in a while, we're going to give you a little context of Capaldi's era and then go through series by series as to what you may have missed.
After fan favourite Doctor Who actor Matt Smith announced on the 1st of June 2013 that he'd be leaving the show, speculation ran rampant as to who would be taking over the iconic role of the Doctor. Just over a month later, during a live show on BBC One called Doctor Who Live, The Next Doctor, Peter Capaldi was officially announced to be taking on the role, striking the iconic pose of the first Doctor, William Hartnell.
Capaldi had always been a lifelong fan of the show, and at 14 years old was writing into the BBC saying that he himself wished that the Daleks would, quote, exterminate him. He would frequently write into the official Doctor Who fan club and was even interviewed in Starburst magazine when he was 15 years old, discussing the show's 10th anniversary special, The Three Doctors.
That's so cute. Capaldi was hardly new to the Doctor Who universe, having previously starred in 2008's The Fires of Pompeii alongside the 10th Doctor David Tennant, and also playing John Frobisher in the 2009 Torchwood serial The Children of Earth. Showrunner Stephen Moffat explained that the Doctor chose this face to remind him that he is the Doctor and that he can always save people.
The 12th Doctor's era ran from Christmas 2013, when he first regenerated onto our screens, until Christmas 2017's Twice Upon a Time, where the 12th and 1st Doctors united for his final adventure. When asked about his decision to leave, Capaldi stated that despite his tremendous love for the show, he was unsure that he'd be able to deliver his best performance if he remained in the role for too long.
That is a noble reason to leave, darling.
Honestly, I think that so many shows and actors on shows could maybe do with having left earlier. I feel like the best shows know when to call it quits. I think maybe like, did you ever watch Miranda?
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, I knew you were a Miranda kid. Miranda was one of them.
I did. I liked it at the time.
I love it now. I haven't watched it in years, but I like that knew when to call it quits. She was like, okay, we'll do like 3 and some specials, then we're done.
Yeah, it went maybe a little too far. Have you ever seen that, like in you get sometimes in like secondhand shops, you get like the Miranda fitness DVDs and stuff, and it's like,
oh yeah,
why was this ever a thing?
That might
be where they overstepped a little too far, but
That's
they wrapped it up pretty quick after that.
Now, much as I love my opinion, and I love my friend Alasdair's, there are a lot of thoughts about the 12th Doctor's era, so we reached out to you on Twitter and Instagram to let us know what you think.
Yeah, we got loads of replies, loads of things. We said, what are your memories of this era? The Black Canary said Missy. David said being 16 and very scared and confused and having Bicon Pearl Mackie on screen.
Mm-hmm.
Mallet Harry says the iconic line by Clara, "Tell me the truth, Doctor, or I'll slap you so hard you regenerate."
Yeah.
Ding Dong again says feeling so represented by Bill. The Big Blue Box 200 said when the TARDIS shrunk and 12 got trapped inside.
Iconic moment.
Kate said Peter Capaldi looking like the Devil Wears Prada, Meryl Streep in those sunglasses. The Heaven Sent montage scene, someone else says. Emma says John Sim and Michelle Gomez. And Jake says Peter Capaldi playing guitar.
We also had a really lovely message from Robbie Woods on Instagram where he said, "Hola lalas, absolutely love the pod. You guys are really wonderful to listen to. Witty, insightful, and as always, camp." Thank you so much, Robbie. I wanted to get in touch after hearing a request for 12th Doctor anecdotes from fans, so here's mine. As a lifelong lover of Doctor Who since the revival in 2005, growing up with 10 and learning to love and definitely crush 11 is as regular a story as most fans of the show. But as I started university in 2015, Doctor Who fell off my radar and I was so put off by the drastic change from 11 to 12. I tried my best to sit through Series 8 because I was a Clara stan, controversial I know, but I could never get the vibes. I never watched Series 9 or 10 and only got back into it after Jodie's announcement. My, how wrong was I? Perhaps I needed a few years to get through that teenage to adult stage in my life to fully appreciate the wonders that are Capaldi. This is Sam, by the way, love Capaldi. I think that is such a funny name. I adore his characterization, his dry comedy, his relationship with Clara is the most genuine Time Lord human encounter I think to ever grace our screens. The writing in this era is one of the best. The TARDIS interior, the best. And Heaven Sent, need I say more? Capaldi really reignited my love for the show in a way I never thought he could. I think his era truly paved the way for more open and honest conversations about who the Doctor is and how their experiences shape their relationships with those in the TARDIS team. Not only does it challenge the gender role set by a show conceived in the 60s with the likes of Missy, an icon in her own right, we see Bill, the show's first openly queer full-time companion, become the dearest of friends to an old Scottish professor in a way that just signifies some of the purest qualities of friendship the Doctor Who encapsulates. Clearly I'm a fan, and I know not everyone enjoys this Moffat era, but I'm a hardline lover and will not see it discredited. I always plug these episodes to new viewers or fans that lost touch, and I think there's a way about 12 that bridges the gap between classic and modern eras of the Doctor that really engages older audiences. Anyway, enough from me. Thanks again for a brilliant pod, and remember, never eat pears.
I love that Doctor Who. I love that people feel so strongly about this damn show.
I just love it. I just love it.
I love that. You know what? I feel like anyone can have any take, and I'm like, yeah, go on.
Yeah, go off. I love that. Thank you so much for mentioning that, Robbie. I feel like we lived very, very similar experiences. I too started university in 2015. And as I just said on the podcast, I felt the exact same way. I kind of like fell off. I feel like I needed to figure out that like bridge between childhood and adulthood. I was also like dealing with my sexuality and stuff. And it was all happening once. And Doctor Who didn't really have like a place in that at that time, or at least not as big of a place. And I definitely sort of came back into it later in the era and sort of rewatched a lot and truly like solidified my love for it. And I love how much you love Capaldi. I think you have some really insightful thoughts there.
I like how Doctor Who just like can come in and out of our lives at different points, and that the show is so different every time it does as well. It's quite cool that happens. And it's funny that, you know, the show is probably safe for like at least another decade. I mean, there'll be times in our lives that, you know, the show is going to change again, and there'll be, new doctors and new companions, and we'll still be watching along at completely different parts of our lives. And it's weird to think about.
We also reached out on Twitter to see what you guys thought, and Louis Legal said, gorgeous era and gorgeous TARDIS teams, special place in my heart and got me through my first years of college after moving country. I love Peter and his doctor will always be special to me. Also, don't be lasagna has been my Instagram bio for years.
That's cute.
True.
I feel like Peter was in the running, and the word people kept using was gravitas, and I hate that. But people said, oh, he's going to bring a lot of gravitas to the role.
Weight.
A serious actor coming to the role. Ooh.
The first Oscar-winning actor.
Is he one up? What?
Peter Capaldi has an Oscar.
For what?
I think it's for like filmmaking. I don't think it's for acting. I think it's for like either directing or filmmaking or something.
I think that could be made
Peter
up.
No. Capaldi Oscar. Here we go. Peter Capaldi won Best Short Film in 1995 and is an Academy Award winner.
Oh my God, who would have known?
There's a picture of him with his Oscar.
Oh my God, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's the first ever Oscar winner to play the Doctor.
Oh my God, they should have used that in the promo. Can you
Honestly,
imagine,
Oscar Award
winner Peter Capaldi is the Doctor. That would have been so good.
It really would.
But yeah, it was like almost as if everyone was saying that was the need, but almost it needed like a correction from Matt Smith's Doctor through to like the stern, gruff Doctor, which I'm not sure I totally agree with. And I mean, as I say, I think in his first series, we got a lot of that very gruff, very stern Doctor, which you can make narratively make sense in a few ways. For me, I found that version could be a little bit too cold, and I found it a little whiplash from the Matt Smith Doctor. And almost if I was going to organize my Doctors in any order, narratively, personality-wise, I would have almost rejigged it so that he was almost chronologically closer to Christopher Eccleston's Time War Doctor, because that almost feels like more where him and his inner turmoils belong, and not off the back of kind of happy, cheery, childish Matt Smith Doctor who's just saved Gallifrey and spent years defending a lovely town and being a good guy. And then suddenly he's like, tell me, Clara, tell me, am I a good man? You do a better impression than me, but it was abrasive to me a little bit.
No, for sure. It's funny, just before we started recording this, me and Arthur, we were saying Peter Capaldi as the Doctor has two different modes. He has like the quiet gruff, like, tell me, Clara, am I a good man? And then he has, oh, Bill, oh, Missy, oh, he has like those two different modes. They're like, tell me, Clara, and then
the tone of that is dead on when you do it. I can't.
I feel like in my head I hear Jacob Dubman doing it, and that's what I'm doing.
Oh, that's good. That's a good way of doing it.
Well, speaking of series, I asked that I think we should give a little bit of a recap for anyone who may not have seen it in a while or gasp has never seen it before in their life.
What?
So, after dying of old age in the Christmas special, the Doctor takes on the face of a Roman marble trader or the 2009 Home Secretary, depending on the series of your choice. After a delirious adventure with the fleshy robots and a T-Rex, the Doctor takes off again with a skeptical Clara Oswald. Together, they travel far across the universe, meeting a good Dalek that the Doctor turns homicidal, attacking Robin Hood with cutlery, fighting mummies on the Orient Express, and making pro-life metaphors with the moon.
I threw that in about the moon because some people felt it was about abortion.
I noticed.
Clara is still working as a teacher, and she starts dating former soldier Danny Pink, who, like many boyfriends and mothers in the Doctor Who universe, has a strong dislike for the Doctor. Their relationship hits a fairly literal roadblock when Danny crosses the road and is hit by a vehicle, killing him instantly. Clara drugs the Doctor and traps him in a volcano in a desperate bid to coerce him to save Danny. Doing so, they appear to discover the afterlife, which only ends up being the latest scheme thought up by Missy, formerly known as the Master, who now has a playful Scottish accent and a wardrobe that Mary Poppins would be jealous of.
After Missy resurrects the dead by converting them into Cybermen, Clara and the Doctor meet Danny Pink's talking corpse, and he helps them stop Missy's plans. The Doctor gives Danny the chance to come back from the dead to be with Clara, but instead he gives the opportunity to a dead child he did a war crime against. The Doctor lies to Clara, telling her he's found Gallifrey, and Clara lies to the Doctor, telling him she's with Danny, so they both could part ways and be happy. They part ways on the high street, and they're big depressed.
Wah, wah. Oh my God, there is so much in this series.
Until doing this like sort of recap of it, I didn't quite realize how like depressed this series ended, and also how much like it was written that Clara could have left at this point. Like Clara didn't. If Clara hadn't come back, that would have made perfect sense.
There were lots of outs for Clara, and I feel like Jenna Coleman didn't really know where she wanted to go, and I don't mind at all, by the way, because love Clara.
Yeah.
love Clara. I think Clara is really one of the all-time great companions. I adore her. I have so much I could say about Clara and Will.
Yeah, I think of 12 and Clara as I do like 4 and Sarah Jane, where she was introduced with the previous Doctor, but she really got her stride with this Doctor.
She really, really did. And I mean, I'll get into that a bit more. On the tone of this series, first of all, let's start there. Oh my God, so depressing. So, I mean, the ending particularly, and I think this is it, right? It feels like it really wanted to be dark.
Yeah.
It wanted to be dark. And this whole like, oh my God, go to hell. No, Clara, I literally mean we're gonna go to hell. I found like so corny.
Yeah.
And I was like, cool. And then I don't know, like, and then when they like find it, I was feeling, oh God, should Doctor Who go here?
No, I'm glad they went where they did though. Like it was all a trick.
It was interesting. For me, there are like almost questions about the universe that Doctor Who shouldn't try to answer. And when it gives a definitive, like, yes, no, things become less interesting because when you give this kind of like spacey, sciencey answer to these like deep spiritual questions, it feels a little bit like, oh, for me. And the whole like, oh, it's the afterlife, but it's not. And like Danny can kind of come back from the afterlife with a magic bracelet I gave him.
Yeah.
It was all a bit like,
odd.
oh. And it was almost like, for me, this is too meta. This is too deep. But it's like Doctor Who's taken a position on like whether there is like life after death.
Not Doctor
and it's
Who
very
becoming
like,
a religion.
It's almost like a little like firmly like, yes, but not in the religious sense. And it's a bit like, oh, that's weird that the show's canonically taken an angle on that. It's almost like one of those things that I'm like, but I feel like you can't do that. I'm a bit like, it's almost as if like it's the episode where, you know, 12 meets Jesus. And I'm like, no, I don't think you should do that. I feel like that's not one you can do.
You said you wanted that when you were growing up.
But you can't do it. You mustn't.
I agree. I think that this era, Doctor Who always has a habit of like doing like a big world-changing event and then very quickly blowing over it and everyone's forgotten. But I think in this series and also later in Capaldi's era, they would do a lot of like big world and universe changing things, and I'd have to and I remember being a bit like, oh, I guess this is like how Doctor Who is now. So like in Kill the Moon, when the moon blew up and like was it replaced by like a hologram or something?
It was replaced by a new egg.
Replaced by a new egg so that like the tides didn't change or something. I was like, this just like, now I have to like know that the moon is an egg. And then there was also the episode where the entire world was overrun by a forest, and I was like, and then they were like, everyone forgot, and I was like, did they that? Like, I don't know. I just feel like there was like one too many thing. I think Doctor Who works really well for me when they have Adventure of the Week for the majority of the series. There's like an underlying tie, and then it accumulates in a great big adventure that we didn't see coming, even though we were warned about it. And I will credit this series with having one of the best tie-ins throughout the series since I think Russell's era, with Missy in the Afterlife, where for every odd episode we would get like a little visit with, obviously we didn't know who she was, but Michelle Gomez's character, where she's like, welcome to the afterlife. And there's one scene where she's in front of this fountain, and even at the time I remember seeing this, and it's the same fountain that they filmed The Girl Who Waited in, which is also the same fountain they filmed A Haunted House and the Sarah Jane Adventures in. And I just remember watching it and I was like, oh, we're here again, are we? Like the location manager really showed. But I did think that was a very well placed like underlying thread throughout the series.
Yeah. Why did one of the Clockwork droids end up there? That droid was never alive, were they?
Yeah. Well, no, the whole point of Clockwork droids is that they are building from existing like like they're using people to fix themselves. So I reckon it was like maybe the guy who he had the skin of the guy who they used his parts. Like it was probably like his soul ending up in the afterlife. That's what I took away from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole Nether Sphere life after death thing was pretty mammoth, and I think also like very hard to understand. I didn't quite get it, and a lot of it just like, I don't know, just a lot of it felt tacky to me. I'm being a real hater about this now, but the whole like when all the Cybermen like burst out of their like there was some like company managing the afterlife on the Earth side, and they all came out of all the Cybermen like come out of their cages, and it's like, we were in St. Paul's all along. And I was like,
yeah.
what? And it's like, it's bigger on the inside. I was like, what is?
Oh yeah, and
what
then the
do you
roof
mean?
like opens and all the stuff.
And then the roof of St. Paul's open. Oh my God, it looked like shit. And I was like, what? It was moments like that I think were meant to be like zany, only in Doctor Who. But I watched it and I was like, this sucks. Like, this sucks. Like, I don't believe this.
We did get a really great moment in that episode, though. I love anything that Kate Lethbridge Stewart is in. And when she walks up to Cyberman and they say, I hate, and this isn't Capaldi's era's fault, but it happened in Matt Smith, that new Cyberman voice, they're like, we are going to destroy you. Like that voice, I hate that voice. And they say that to Kate, they're like, we're going to invade you or something. And she's like, oh yeah, well you left this behind in your last visit. And she like drops the invasion of Earth, like Cyberman helmet. I thought that was so badass. I do love that Unit isn't forgotten, and Kate and Osgood are not forgotten in this era. Like they turn up to help at the end, because I think this is like a big criticism for like Avengers films, for example, is that like this big world-ending event will end and it's like, none of the other people that you've met are going to help because this is my story. Whereas Unit like pop up and they're like, no, like this is a big earthbound threat, like we're going to get involved, you know?
Yeah, I get that. Now that Unit is a shard-sized building and Unit's remit is aliens, hopefully we're no longer in a world where people go, aliens? And it's more like, aliens, you know. Because we're at this it's the Doctor Who universe. I don't feel you can pull the card in the 21st century Doctor Who universe and going, aliens! So we'll see. Anyway, lots was good in this series. Lots was good. Lots was good. You didn't name any of those things.
No, lots was good. The big one, and I know we've still got 2 more series to talk about. The big thing I do want to quickly touch back on is Clara. And I think talking about Clara's relationship with the Doctor, because it really starts to become quite a toxic friendship. And I think that comes from her. And I like this as like a story point. She really in this series starts to, I think, despise the Doctor in a way where he in Kill the Moon sort of forces her to make a horrible decision and just doesn't help, like just flat out doesn't help her. And then later he's like, I was trying to, let you walk on your own 2 feet and like grow and do things your own. She was like, no, you're my friend and you weren't being kind. And then she says she's, going to leave him and she's never going to travel with him again. And then she just can't keep, she'll have one last trip with him, just one last trip. And then she has that trip and then she's like, another one. And she can't stop going back. And so I think her way of kind of coping with that and rationalizing it is to be like, okay, I'm going to become like the Doctor and I'm going to do things the way that I think that they should be done and not the way you do. And there's a really great bit in Flatline where the Doctor basically says, like, what are you going to do? And she's like, lie to them, tell them they'll be fine, even though I can't promise they will be. That's what you do, isn't it? And the Doctor's kind of like, he's kind of like gagged a bit. But then she does have like a really funny interaction with Rigsy as well.
Yeah, but I'm the Doctor, Dr. Oswald, but you can call me Clara. And then it's like, what are you a doctor of? And the Doctor's like, of lies. And she's like, well, I'm usually quite vague about that. I think I just picked the title because it makes you sound important.
It is funny.
Why, Dr. Oswald, you are hilarious.
Oh, she is. But that, I think, especially going into series 9, I haven't really seen this kind of development for a companion pushed in this way. I think Rose is maybe the closest, where Rose was sort of becoming... I think if Rose had carried on further, she could have become who Clara was. But she was kind of cut short. And I think that in series 9, you really get to see what happens when a companion sort of starts to think they can be the Doctor and the consequences that come with that.
I agree. I feel like almost like the Doctor, the companions he falls in love with, he's willing to mentor in like, you can learn how to live like me. Or like forgets to check himself maybe and lets him in a little more than he should. Maybe that's what happens. And that's when they start to like live dangerously. I noticed recently watching the end of series 4, Rose knows far more than a normal human should know, and talks very casually about parallel worlds with the Doctor. And he's like, oh, Rose, your parallel world, that's running ahead of this one. And it's like the most normal thing. She's like, oh, yeah, well, in our world in Torchwood, blah, 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 blah. And he doesn't blink at the fact that she's been going parallel to parallel to parallel. He's like, oh, yeah, probably.
She had 3 big finished box sets about it.
Exactly. He's like, yeah, I guess. Yeah, I really like the obsessive relationship they develop. I like that her being with the Doctor makes her more reckless, and it almost all stems from the original mystery of who is Clara Oswald and the fact that the Doctor is reckless with her, because either he thinks, well, she's going to die anyway, it's a copy, it's a trap, it's a duplicate, she's not real, she's too impossible, I can do what I like. And by the time that he realizes, like, oh no, it's a fragile human, she's just a person, and actually I lead her to the situation that causes her to become the mystery. By that point, he's almost imprinted on her already, and she doesn't know any other way to be, and he's made her like this now. And so her fate is kind of sealed by that point.
Well, it's really interesting you say that, because I think that definitely is how his relationship sort of starts off and is growing with Clara, but then towards the end, and especially during series 9, he keeps reiterating to her, he's like, I have a duty of care. Every time she's reckless, I think he slowly realizes that she's not indestructible, she's not the Doctor, she doesn't have regenerations. And especially I think around the whole Ashilda thing, which we'll get into in a moment, he continually starts to say to her, I have a duty of care to you, and she's like, I didn't ask you for that, I have never asked you for that. I think we should just get into series 9. We're kind of going into series 9 naturally.
I say, last thing I really, really loved that Clara did on part of her like journey to like becoming the Doctor is her very good attempt to swindle the Doctor. And it seems to us, the audience, initially that she's done it, like that she screwed over the Doctor, she outwitted the Doctor, and that she had slipped him this kind of like delirium patch or whatever, that she'd kind of led him outside the TARDIS, drugged him or whatever, knew where all of the TARDIS keys were hidden, destroyed them in the only fire that could destroy them one by one, and like basically doomed them both to die in this volcano together. And she hadn't quite gotten away with it. But it seemed like for a moment, like, wow, like she'd been taking notes, and she'd been thinking, like, how would I beat the Doctor at his own game? And she very nearly does it had the patches worked on him.
Yeah. She really, if she wanted to, and if they wanted to go in this direction, she could have been such a good villain. She really could.
She could have been a great villain.
She could have.
I mean, she could have been a Doctor. I mean, if you ever want to recast the Doctor as Jenna Coleman, I wouldn't be even a teeny bit mad about it.
Me neither. The Doctor or the Master.
A lot of people would be.
A lot of people would be. A lot of people would be.
Fantastic Master. I don't know if you ever saw Jenna Coleman in The Sandman.
I did, when she was Constantine.
She is excellent.
So good.
I want a whole show of just her. But anyway, let's move on to Series 9.
Yes, Series 9.
After a mental dream involving Father Christmas and alien facehuggers, the Doctor reunites with Clara, preventing her comfortable life on Earth and dragging her back into space. They're brought together with Missy on Skaro, homeworld of the Daleks, to save a dying Davros and his Nazi kids. Although clearly a trap, the Doctor falls for it and ends up getting that sweet, sweet regeneration juice sapped by Davros, reviving him. Davros warns the Doctor of the Time Lord prophecy of the hybrid, a creature born of two great warrior races, which observant audiences suspect means the Slitheen and the Absorbaloff.
They meet Ashilda, a Viking girl, what looks like that one girl that was on Game of Thrones. The episode is known as The Girl Who Died because she goes and does that. But after the Doctor remembers he chose his face to remind him to save people, he uses an alien repair kit to curse her to a life of immortality, therefore becoming the woman that lived. She continues to live through the centuries, traumed by plague and witch hunts and other such things, while the Doctor and Clara continue their destructive romp through time. Eventually, Clara's need to be like the Doctor catches up with her, and she sacrifices her life to save someone else's.
This is all part of another elaborate trap gone wrong, and the Doctor is soon locked in a time-looped castle being chased by a stanky, shrouded figure known as the Veil. The castle resets every time he refuses to confess his knowledge about the hybrid, the Veil zapping him dead each time. To escape, he has to punch through a wall made of asbantium, a material stronger than diamonds. Luckily, Peter Capaldi's hands are really hard, and over a few billion resets, he smashes through the wall. Gag time, Gallifrey is on the other side. The Time Lords use a confession dial to torture him. He declares himself the hybrid, born out of the Time Lords and the Time War.
Now, feeling naughty, the Doctor does a crime against the Time Lords to force them to extract Clara from her timeline moments before she dies, leaving her frozen between one heartbeat and the next. They escape Gallifrey by stealing a TARDIS, yes, another one, and reunite with Ashilda at the end of time to try and save Clara. They realise this is impossible, and the only way to truly keep each other safe will be to wipe one of their memories. The Doctor loses his memories of Clara, so she leaves him in her newly stolen TARDIS, fashioned as a diner, along with me, her hot lover, not confirmed, taking the long way home to Gallifrey.
Did you follow that one, girls? I'm not sure I did.
It took a lot of like do you know what I'm realizing as we do these recaps of Peter Capaldi's series, and I'm truly, I know there is a lot of good in this series, and I'm not trying to like shit on anything, but the majority of our series recap is of the last is like the first episode and like the last 3 episodes, and then everything that happens in between, it's like you can skip it. You can skip it, which you shouldn't.
You shouldn't.
But that's how it's kind of coming across with these recaps.
A lot of those other little adventures, I mean, they're good. They are good adventures in there. There's a lot of lows in with the highs. And I guess some of those episodes only serve to hammer home the point that we're already getting at about the relationship between the characters. There are some good adventures there. But I mean, this is so Moffat. The story arcs are so complex that only the openers and the finales in themselves, like it's a mouthful to try and explain.
Well, in this series, there's actually 2 of my favorite episodes of Peter Capaldi's era in here: the Zygon Invasion, Zygon Inversion.
Oh yeah,
I think they are the epitome of like really good Doctor Who, where they're like a sequel to The Day of the Doctor, where you actually get to see what Earth is like with Zygons living within the community. And it feels like it's got really big scale. You go across loads of countries. It's a really great big unit story. And I feel like this is where Doctor Who is really, really good. I know you don't love the Zygons. I know you think they're a bit icky. But
I do.
I really, truly do like these episodes.
I agree. And actually, the point I just made a minute ago about, oh, well, if Doctor Who's going to do something, they should deal with the consequences of it. That's exactly what that 2-parter does. It deals with the consequences of the Day of the Doctor, which is to say, like, we have loads of Zygons living amongst us. And it's like, cool, where? And this answers that question. So, you know what? Like, maybe I'm being unfair. It's probably fair, really, that Stephen Moffat wanted to do a little bit of a soft reset and not carry every piece of baggage across from the Russell T Davies 1 era. And of course, you can't do that, just to correct myself, because Doctor Who would collapse under its own weight, with all of that. So, and we'd be looking at a completely unrecognizable, traumatized Earth if we did that all the time. But yeah.
Exactly. One thing about this series that I guess the hybrid is the like underlying tie of this series in the same way that Missy was for the series before. I know that they kind of settled on the Doctor saying he is the hybrid and he becomes the hybrid by what he's willing to do to save Clara. And it's kind of like the hybrid between the Doctor and Clara. Did they kind of retcon that in Chibnall's era by saying the hybrid was actually the Time Lords and the Cybermen? Is that what that was?
It's possible to interpret it that way because it was a very literal union of the...
It was never that explicit though. It was never explicitly said.
No, and the other issue we have there is that Clara was always going to have to return to Gallifrey to prevent fracturing time. So in the end, Clara is like in stasis forever. Like biologically she's fixed, like she is the same person physically she is the split second before she dies, and so she has to go back to Gallifrey and die on, what was it called, Trap Street or something,
with the Raven, and
she has to die there for like time to not shatter. She can't just vanish because otherwise nothing happens after that. But if Gallifrey's gone, she can never get back. So Chibnall destroying Gallifrey creates a new problem. So I wouldn't think they were trying to make a link there. It's possible.
Yeah, it feels like it wasn't like a deliberate thing they were doing, but it feels like it's almost like he didn't watch that series and it's like, oh, like you're basically doing what they just did, but like quite literally. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, let's say some good things.
Yes.
The Confession Dial story, Hellbent Heaven Sent, fantastic story. Really, really loved that. One of the best. That was certainly one that I remember putting on that I did not think was poor.
Yeah.
And the music in that, The Shepherd's Boy, is one of the most beautiful pieces that's ever been done in Doctor Who. Just gorgeous, just stunning. And I think a really interesting mechanism for getting back to Gallifrey as well. Him, I think, realizing immediately that he's in a confession dial and that he has a route back to Gallifrey, and realizing that that gives him some window to try and get Clara back in a completely insane, desperate attempt that he knows is reckless and dangerous and will kind of break the universe, and doing it anyway because he's grieving so badly. and repeating that process for kind of billions of years and remembering it at the exact moment he's kind of starting to punch his fist through diamonds is a really gorgeous story. Like that level, that depth of love, like on that completely obsessive, insane, passionate level is really, really gorgeous. I kind of love that that's where they ended up with each other, the Doctor and Clara, that they were just that important to each other and that intertwined that either Clara would end up traveling long enough that she died on an adventure because she just became so reckless and so like the Doctor, and she's like, you take risks all the time, why can't I? And she's saying that when she's like fated to die already, like, you know, she's accepted it. She's like, this is it, like, this is me, I'm facing the Raven, I'm gonna be brave, I knew this would happen one day, this is what it is.
And she does that companion thing to the Doctor where she's trying to comfort him. The Doctor is so funny, and I do think that Capaldi does this well, especially in this series, that the Doctor always does. The Doctor, like, is the biggest, baddest person when you cross him and when you threaten someone he loves. And when faced with this awful, terrible thing, Clara has to sort of talk him off the ledge and be like, listen, I'm not going to be here anymore, and you have to look after yourself. Like, you have to be the Doctor, she tells him. It's like when River was telling the 11th Doctor after losing Amy, you know, you don't travel on your own. You can't travel on your own. Please travel with someone. And I feel like she's doing the sort of classic companion thing of doing that. But yeah, I really, really, really love... It didn't feel like Jenna Coleman knew whether she was going to do this series, not because, like you said, they gave her like an out at the end of series 8, then they gave her an out in the Christmas special when they aged her up, and then they brought her back into this, and she wasn't even in this series the whole time. There was a couple of episodes that Jenna wasn't in, and I'm glad that they then left it how they did. I think a lot of people wanted like a me and Clara spin-off show, and I was like, no. I was like, no, we don't need that. Maybe like a cameo down the line or something, but like let that story rest. I think it ended so well.
Yeah. I think that was plenty there. I don't want to be a hater,
but you're going to be anyway, aren't you?
The story of a Shielder / me is so good. Like, the story is so interesting and so great. I'm gonna be really horrible.
Oh, come on.
I don't think Maisie Williams was the right person to cast. There are moments where you're meant to believe that me, a Shielder, has experienced so many lives and is so wizened and so like broken by all these things she's experienced, and she's like the last true immortal at the end of time. Like,
oh yeah, you know, she's like, I outlived all the other immortals.
And I'm like, I don't believe you. I don't buy it.
Maisie Williams is a great girl who died, and not as incredible as the woman who lived.
Yeah, I just found that I didn't buy it.
I really, really liked when you saw her like a few hundred years later, where she was in like the Edwardian time or something, and she had the big manor house. Yeah. Like that, I believe she was pissed off at the Doctor. She was like, you fucking left me, basically. I've been fending for myself. I've had a horrible time. But then, yes, I agree with your critique that when we see her like at the end of time and she's like, I've lived a million lives. Like, she's meant to be older and wiser than the Doctor at this point, having lived a long life. Yeah. And I feel like, I don't know, I think for any actor that's a really difficult
it's very
task
hard.
to have.
It's a very hard task.
Who could you see in that role, like a young actor who looks like they could have played a child that remained immortal as a child?
God knows.
Millie Bobby Brown?
Absolutely no.
Imagine all the people.
You may say I'm a dreamer.
Vanessa Hudgens. Yeah, people died, and that was terrible, but inevitable.
Well, it's very hard. You're asking for someone who's like plausibly like, well, they want it to be like 14, 15 or something, and then later in the series can be like infinitely old. It's really tough. I don't know how you play that right or who you cast for it. For me, found it tricky to believe.
That's fair.
I think they wanted a name.
Oh no, 1,000%. Game of Thrones was at its height when this came out, and I think that they were super, super lucky to get such talent that is Maisie Williams. And it's not at all, I think, a comment on her acting abilities, because she's amazing and incredible. But I do see what you mean, that it's just a very difficult undertaking to play both a child and someone who, like you said, is infinitely old.
Maybe like an unknown actor would have convinced me a little more. if I wasn't like, oh, it's Maisie Williams.
Yeah,
I don't know.
that's another thing. Yeah.
And sometimes that in itself is distracting sometimes.
Yeah. I do like where they ended her character because I think she, correct me if I'm wrong, like travelled the world but was always like solo. She like never really had anyone with her. And then at the end, we see her with Clara and they're off to kind of explore the universe together in a TARDIS. And I think that's like a fun way. Like, I don't think we need to see what happens next. I just like the idea of them zipping away and the parallel of Clara, like, you know, we're going back to Gallifrey the long way round with the Doctor.
Yeah.
I think that's quite a sweet way to end
I
things.
really like that ending. That was nice. It's funny. It's kind of almost like it happens twice. Clara kind of zips off into space onto adventures never to be seen again. Bill zips off into space on adventures never to be seen again. Both of them not really human anymore. Both of them never to be seen again and never visit the Doctor and never encounter him ever again on all their travels. Feels like a little bit of a cop-out ending where it's almost a little like halfway towards and they lived happily ever after without having to quite do it.
I do. Part of me wishes, and I know that it's nice that, you know, that we can always have Jenna Coleman come back. I do love her. Part of me wishes that the series had ended not with the Doctor losing his memories of Clara, but with the Doctor having to accept that he had taken Clara out and they'd had that last sort of like adventure together when she was in between heartbeats, and just says goodbye, and she goes back into her timeline and she dies and Clara is dead, and that is how he has to move on. Because like you said, yeah, it feels like the same happens with Bill, which we'll get into in a moment. Bill dies and then it's kind of not dead, and also kind of not dead twice, 2 episodes in a row. She dies and then becomes Sideman, and then she dies again, and then she becomes a water lady, and then she dies again, and then she becomes a glass lady. So actually that's 3 times in a row, Mama.
Yeah. Moffat's quite it's quite loose with death.
Yeah.
And the number of times you can do it, which is his choice. And that's very his fairy tale era, right? I think, like, listen, there's so much I'd love to say that's good as well. Like, let me say, like, the opener I think is great. Like, I really like the Daleks. I like the dark elements of the Daleks. Like, the highlights from that one, for example, when Clara gets put back in a Dalek casing, not only, like, the parallel between her being stuck on the Starship Alasdair and then stuck again inside a Dalek, and she doesn't even know why that's so shocking to the Doctor to see that happen again. And, you know, when she tries to say to the Doctor through the Dalek casing, I'd never hurt you, I love you, and the casing translates it into I hate you, exterminate, and you can't be a nice Dalek even if you wanted to be, even if you're having nice thoughts a Dalek, and how your flesh can never die as a Dalek. You're sent to decompose in the sewers, but you're still alive.
I know.
Dalek living slime all over you and all these other horrible dark things. And I mean, that's all super great. There was loads of like we said, like there's loads of adventures we haven't covered it. Clara learning to fly the TARDIS, like that's the thing I love seeing.
Clara learns to fly the TARDIS. Yeah, we haven't really
spent companions flying the TARDIS.
No, me too. We haven't really spent much time talking about Missy, and I think we'll talk about Missy more when we talk about series 10. But I think that Missy's development in this series really alludes to where she's going to be, because Missy, when she's introduced in series 8, is just like a horrible, like but likable, evil person, and in this series she kind of like has a little bit more of like a playfulness. We kind of are like following her a bit more. I really truly loved Missy in the opener of this series, and I vividly remember watching this and being like, this is what people need to see when they're, because I remember there being arguments about a female Doctor even before they cast Jodie, and like we could never have a female Doctor. And I remember watching Missy and Clara go off and do their own thing, and I was like, this is incredible, and this is what it would be like if we had a female Doctor, and being like, I want more of this. Like, I was like, oh my god, cast Michelle Gomez as the Doctor. I think Missy in this series is just such like delicious fun, and she's really, really, really good. Yeah,
she's great. I love I love insane, playful, villainous master. I mean, every new Who master has played it that way in their own way and put their own spin on it. But yeah, Missy is a uniquely fun character, and I really like we'll get into it as well. Missy's kind of development arc. You never really know if she's ever turning good or not, or kind of on her way there, or if she's being honest about her intentions. We're trying to cover like 3 whole series. We're not going to cover everything.
And listen, speaking of, I think it's time we dived into series 10, baby.
Let's go, baby.
Let's go. Not long after losing Clara, the Doctor bumps into his formerly dead wife at Christmas and ends up helping her with her archaeology project before taking her on their final date to the Singing Towers of Darillium. They spend many years together in a hotel room before he sends her off to die in a library.
Being a Green voter, the Doctor settles in Bristol as an unqualified uni professor who teaches in vague and poetic terms. He meets Bill Potts, a canteen assistant who smiles when she's confused and has a thing for girls made of puddles. Against the wishes of Matt Lucas, his new companion apparently, he brings Bill along for his first trip in decades, sealing her fate as a Moffat companion who'll probably die. Matt Lucas disapproves, as the Doctor was meant to stay on Earth to guard a mysterious vault. During their adventures, they have a run-in with killer emoji bots, the Doctor goes blind, Bill makes a deal with an evil monk, and the Earth gets enslaved. The gang unlock the Forbidden Vault for advice, and gag, it's Missy inside.
Gasp. After defeating organised religion, the Doctor decides to take his nemesis seriously when she says she wants to be besties. The Doctor and Bill agree to take her on an outing on a spaceship trapped near a black hole, but bazinga! It's another trap. Bill gets shot in the chest, which is really difficult to survive, and to save her, the Doctor lets her get abducted into the basement where they have a hospital. Bad soon turns to worse when she gets upgraded and becomes a Mondasian Cyberman. Oops. After Missy has a bad case of deja vu, she reunites with her previous incarnation, who looks a little like a magician, and suddenly the Doctor is faced not only battling the Cybermen, but both Missy and John Sims' master.
Missy soon has a change of hearts, though, and tells the Master that they need to stand with the Doctor. He thinks that's gross, and they kill each other, laughing away as they do. The Doctor and Matt Lucas manage to destroy the spaceship that houses the Cybermen. Bill is reunited with the magical space goddess Puddles she met in episode 1, who turns her from a dead Cyberman into a slay human made out of water. She doesn't stick around to let the Doctor know she's alive, zapping off into the stars with her girlfriend.
The Doctor wakes up regenerating and suicidal, only agreeing to stay alive when his first self teaches him some life lessons. They also meet an ancestor of his old friend, the Brigadier, and he's reunited with the glass avatar of Bill. He bids farewell to Bill, who shows him just how important memories can be by recovering his memories of Clara from the recycling bin.
The Doctor once again goes back into his TARDIS and regenerates into the next chapter of their life.
Ooh, I feel like we need to preface, Matt Lucas is not playing Matt Lucas in this series.
But he might as well be. No, I don't care for Nardole. Nardole stands. Do your own thing. Send me hate mail.
I'm so
throw
curious.
a brick through my window.
If you really are a Nardole fan, and I'm trying not to like drag. I also love Matt Lucas, and I do think there are some funny moments with Nardole. I just don't personally think he's necessary in this series. I don't quite know how much he adds. For anyone who truly is a Nardole fan, I'm genuinely curious. Like, please, like, reach out to us and let us know, like, what it is you love so much about the character. I'm so curious.
Okay, let's get into Missy's arc. Missy's arc is so interesting. We talked about this before, the character of Missy, and how the tragedy of Missy's story is that she seems genuinely interested in becoming, if not kind of the good guy. She maybe wants to at least reach kind of decent terms with the Doctor and become friends with him again, and understands that part of the condition of that is that she can't be, you know, the flat out evil maniac that she has lived most of her lives being. It's as if at the very end, standing with the Doctor is her first attempt to take the first step towards being good, and has that cut short by a previous master who hates that and feels that, you know, her future's gone wrong.
Yeah, no, exactly. She throughout most of series 10, she is saying like she wants to learn more about being good, and there's that really sweet scene in the TARDIS where she, I think, has flown the TARDIS to save the Doctor, and she cries at one point, and she's like, I don't even know why I'm crying, and the Doctor says like, I think it's about time that we became friends again. And the whole time I was like, I'm really not sure if this is like a play, like if she's doing this to like get some end goal. And then there's this really lovely sort of delicious scene at the beginning of the 2-part finale where she comes out of the TARDIS with her little Mary Poppins hat, and the camera says like, who are you? And she's like, I'm the Doctor. Or no, she goes,
Yeah,
I'm Doctor Who. And
yeah,
it all feels like a bit like a game to her, and she quite quickly slips back into her old masterish ways when presented with Johnson's master, who I also want to say props to Stephen Moffat for bringing Johnson's master back. I truly thought we would never see him again, and it was really lovely to see him in like a sort of Delgado-esque outfit with like the eyeliner and the grey hair and the sort of magician coat. And seeing her at the end, like you said, when she says like, no, it's time we stood with the Doctor, and she kills him and then he kills her, and they both end up sort of maniacally laughing. It is a really, I think it's one of the best arcs we've seen the Master have. We have amazing actors play the Master quite regularly, but I really do have a soft spot for Missy's arc, especially in this series.
yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think there's very good reason that she's a fan favorite. Michelle Gomez is wonderful. She's really captivating. She's so much fun. She's really funny.
Mm.
I think you kind of want her to be good because you want to enjoy her.
Mm.
I mean, you enjoy her evil as well. That's the thing. You don't hate her as a villain at all.
No, exactly. She delicious is the word that I keep using.
You do
for
keep
Missy.
saying it.
I do keep saying it because it's true. I think that she just plays bad so good.
Come on, synonyms. Tasty.
She just crafts tasty. Okay, yeah, she's tasty. No, I think she just crafts it, and I think it's so nice seeing. I don't mean when I say it's nice. When I talk about Missy's development, I don't mean like, oh, it's good that they made her good because like that shows she grew. Because I think you can grow as a villain and still be a villain. I just like how much they developed a character from like, oh, Missy, you're so fun, hey, Missy, I'm crazy, I'm gonna blow up this spaceship, and to like this quite weighty character who you're not quite sure if they're good or not. It's not that they're imperatively good, but they are very conflicted, and I just think it makes the character so much more interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think of Bill?
We talked about Belle a lot more in our rewatch of the pilot. So we've done a little bit more of like a character discussion back there, and like how important she is as like the first lesbian character, and Pearl Mackie being a bisexual actor as well, and how exciting that is. She's a really fun character with loads of curiosity. I remember that was the thing we saw a lot of in the previews when we first saw Belle, was that she was like, jabbing the Doctor with all these questions. I thought she was a lot of fun. It's a shame that we didn't get, I think, a bit longer with Bill. I think if we'd had a bit longer, we could have had a bit more fun, and I think she could have ended up being maybe more of a memorable companion. I think because we only had her for that one series, and unless I'm mistaken, most kind of main full-time companions get more than one, or even more than one Doctor.
I mean, I guess Martha, I feel like kind of got a series and a half because she was actually in 6 of the 13 episodes of series 4, to be fair.
That's true. And I guess maybe she landed right in kind of peak Who fever, maybe that kind of blended to her.
No, I see what you mean, though, because she was also in like a few episodes of Torchwood, and then she
came
like,
back, and then she got like
and Donna was like in the Christmas special, but came back. Yeah.
And because of the way that she interacted with other companions, it made her feel like one of the main 3.
Yeah.
Of that time. So I guess mixed. I think I really liked the Bill that we met at the very, very start, who was kind of curious, and I really like Bill's humor. I think Pearl Mackie plays the humor really, really well, and there were like lines that I really, really enjoyed from her, like, it's made of wood. And when she's like, this isn't a knock through, is it? It's a lift. And it's like,
I like when she's like,
getting there.
You're running like a penguin with his arse on fire.
Exactly. And like, I think that's what I like the most. And then like her ending, I mean, as a Cyberman, was really tragic. And then even her return, there was a lot of scenes she didn't get to have very much fun with. It felt like it required her to take it very seriously all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it lent itself to, let me be careful how I say this, but some of it felt a little melodramatic at times. Some of it.
Yeah.
There were parts of it where, like, in my mind, I can see Bill crying a lot and pulling that face.
Yeah.
And that's one of my clear memories of Bill, is almost just like it going so much from like a funny girl who served chips and da-da-da-da-da to on her knees sobbing over the Doctor's dead body, and then we can't leave him. No, of course we can't leave him. And then zapping off, and it all just being very sobby and howling. And it didn't.
I remember feeling really sorry for Pearl Mackie. I have this real vivid memory. I'm gonna go on a brief story here, but forgive me. I remember one Christmas watching, I think it was the Celebrity Crystal Maze. Did you ever watch? They had the Crystal Maze show, and they do like celebrity versions. And Pearl Mackie wasn't one of the contestants, but they had this maze that they went into, and it was Pearl Mackie in a kind of like a cryostasis chamber. And I think the challenge was to like unlock the stasis and get her out. And I feel like it was Jimmy Carr or someone, I can't remember who, hosting the episode. and they said to her, like, oh, will you be back in the maze? Like, will we see you later? Will you be back in the maze? And they went, oh, depends on the ratings, I guess. And it was like a jab at how she wasn't that well received on Doctor Who, and she kind of just like lies there and laughs a bit and like palms it off. But I remember watching that and being like, that just feels really shit, because like they really tried something new in like a comfortable old way, I think, with Pearl Mackie's character and with Bill, where she was very much like, it was like a student teacher dynamic, which felt very much reminiscent of like the Ninth Doctor and Rose, and like the Fourth Doctor and Leela. And I really, really like that they're not like best friends and they're not lovers. It's very, very like student and mentor. And I feel like she had so much potential, and if she had maybe had 2 series, they could have really developed her character. But I agree with you that it did feel a lot like they crammed in like the 2 extremes. And I think my favourite parts of Bill were when she was like the fun, young, energetic, new sort of breath of life in the TARDIS. And then the things with like her mum, the storyline with her mum, where she doesn't have any photos, the Doctor gets her all of these old photos of her mum because he goes back in time and takes them herself. That felt really weighty and had a lot of gravitas and really connected. But then when in the Monk episode, they have to use the memories of her mum to save the world, and there's that really awful like green screened video of her mum like smiling to everyone like that. It just like, it felt like they went far too way the other end. I feel like they couldn't really decide what they wanted to do with her, which I felt really bad, because I do really, really like Bill's character.
It felt exactly that. It felt like they hadn't quite worked out what they needed to do. They'd got like halfway with sketching out who her character was, because there were details they didn't complete. Like, we didn't really get like a proper look at her family. Her mum kind of vanished halfway through the series and didn't come back. That didn't seem to be an issue either for Bill, that she would never see her adopted mum again when she was trapped as a Cyberman. That wasn't like really a concern for her. Like, I'm never going to see my family, I'm never going to see my friends again. Like, it wasn't really an issue. I don't know. It was like, whereas like, I don't know, when I think of like Rose stuck on like, a planet orbiting a black hole, like one of their immediate concerns is like, I'm really far from home. Like, what do we get? Like,
I'm never going to see my mum again.
I'm never going to see my mum again. Like, what are we going to, and it's that kind of grounding that I don't feel like we quite got. And the one thing I feel we didn't quite get into that I love with the Doctor and the Companion is a bit of bantering, where they start to get into their rhythm of like, I jab you, you jab me, but it's fun. And it's a bit like almost
it's
we
just
had with
shade.
There's a bit as well of just like almost one that sums up for me is, dare I say, it's in Fear Her. And again, it's Rose 10, forgive. And I'm not just saying this because I'm like, RTV's the best. Rose 10, yes. It's a basic choice. It's a basic choice. But it's that bit of, Copper's Hunch. That whole permission to follow it up, Sarge. A bit of a joke. Make it fun.
Yeah.
Have a laugh. And I feel like it's that, like, talking to each other like mates now and then. And, even like Clara, like we said, like Clara's like, I'll slap you so hard you regenerate.
Yeah.
Like,
that was really funny. I really, really love that
It's
line.
a bit of a like, I'm on your level. Do not screw with me. Maybe that's why I missed a little bit. It felt like they hadn't quite reached that point in their journey together, though. Like, Bill admired the Doctor, but even like after he regenerated, like, I don't think even in the next, I can't even remember how he reacted to seeing Bill again as Glass.
Do you remember halfway through this series, she shoots the Doctor to kill him, and then he fake regenerates, and then it's like, hi, it was a test. I just had to make sure you really.
He's like, good girl,
and she's like doing that like thing, like she just shot the Doctor. And like and it's fine, and we just move on. Also, like, I guess I know he didn't know her as long or whatever, but like, I guess it's like, screw Bill, because with Clara, he like, spent 4.5 billion years punching through diamonds to try and save her. And then with Bill, he within, the 4-day adventure, he like loses Bill, sees his first incarnation, regenerates, becomes a woman, ends up in Sheffield, lives a life. And like, Bill does not get an afterthought.
I think, does he know at that point that Bill's become water and he's fine with it? I can't remember.
I know that he knows about the Avatar Bill. I don't remember whether or not Bill made a point of telling him about the water thing. This is where it gets really
fuzzy for me.
We've got plenty of rewatches to do. And Nardole died, didn't he? Because then he came back as Glass as well.
Oh God, I hope so. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Lucas.
Where did Nardole come? I don't even remember where he came from.
River Song. He was River Song's assistant.
God, he wasn't he?
Yeah.
Oh God.
I think it's that. I think it's that he was River Song's assistant, and the Doctor kept Nardole around because he was like the last tie he had to River Song.
Right. No need.
Well, Series 10, everyone. Where's the soundtrack? Where's the soundtrack?
Series 10. Where is the soundtrack?
Do you remember Murray Gold said they were going to release the Series 10 soundtrack? Where is it?
It's difficult for me to like summarize my feelings about this era. Like, as you said, it's an interesting point where like I was definitely starting to feel that I was maybe like aging out of Who, and I was thinking like, look, maybe it's just not for me anymore. Maybe it is just for like for a younger audience. I think it has great moments. I think it has a really interesting series of explorations of the character of the Doctor that haven't been done before. I think it's got really interesting dynamics between the Doctor and the companion that goes to like really dark places. I think it pushes the boat as well with what it's willing to do. So there's a lot to like be praised about this era that is, I think, really bold and really interesting. And equally, I feel it's an era of Doctor Who that takes itself quite seriously. I think a lot of what you and I subjectively enjoy about Doctor Who is the camp. And there's not, for me, a huge amount of camp.
I think Missy brought the camp in this era.
Missy brought the camp, and that was for us one of our highlights. And I think a lot of these other moments, maybe they just weren't quite there in the same way. And I think that could well be like, look, is that the influence of a queer showrunner? Partly, yes. I think a lot of that is style. And I think it's to do with the fact that, because, you know, Stephen Moffat just has a different approach, and it's to do with his like fairy tale approach. I think it's to do with the approach they wanted to go with this Doctor as well.
Yeah, I feel like I need to be very aware as well that like I was definitely going through a transitional period in my life where, like you said, I feel like maybe I was like questioning whether I'm going out of the show, or like, does it mean as much to me as it did when I was younger? I don't know. And that definitely like affected how I viewed the show for the first time, like this era growing up. But I feel like Capaldi's era of Doctor Who had so many great moments, and I I don't know how good of a recap this was, as much as just us chatting about what we think about it, but I think that this era brought so many really, really good things. I think that Missy is one of, if not my favourite portrayals of the Master. I love getting to see Davros back. I truly love what they did with Clara's storyline. I really, really adore Bill's character. I think that they explored some really interesting storylines within episodes like the Zygon Invasion and the Zygon Inversion. But then on the flip side, I think that it's fine to say, I think often, especially running a Doctor Who podcast, it feels like we can't really comment, or shouldn't comment, I'll say, on things that we didn't love so much for fear of ruining someone else's experience.
I don't upset anyone. Like, I love that people love this era. I love that people loved it. Reading out all those comments, people are like, this was my era, this was my Doctor. So much I loved.
I truly don't want to. I truly don't want anyone to think that like any negative comments we might make about it is a comment on other people's enjoyment of it, because I love hearing, and this is going to sound really like sappy, like I'm saying it for the podcast, and I'm truly not. I really love reading all of your comments about this, because I am like, oh my god, like this really was your era, as mine was really that, and yours is really this. And there's so much. This is why I was so like, oh, I really want to hear about what you're saying about Nardole, because I personally don't love Nardole's character, so I really want to hear like what you connect, like as a listener, with Nardole's character. So please, like, honestly, let us know. Shut up. You keep moving.
No, it's good. And then I realized we were talking about Nardole. No, it's funny just because of how much like I instinctively reject it.
I know. Reject Nardole, I know.
Sure.
Because I think this era, for me, has a lot of high highs, then also episodes like Kill the Moon, and episodes where they do things or say things that I just don't think I connect with as much. And I think that this is where Doctor Who it's such a great show, because it can be so many things for so many different people, and so many people fucking love this era, and rightfully so. It is a really good era. It's interesting seeing how different people connect with it, and this is why I genuinely want to hear from you. This isn't just me doing like a call out, like you know me by this point. If you're this far into Wholala, I do my, and now we want to hear from you guys. Blah, blah, blah. But I genuinely and really, really want to hear what you think about this era, because it truly is such a polarizing series, and I don't think that Peter Capaldi's portrayal as the Doctor is particularly polarizing. I think a lot of people love him, but just this era in general is particularly polarizing, and I'm so curious to hear what you think.
Yes, absolutely. Polarizing is the word. Even Kill the Moon, you know, and there's great moments within even that story. It's very, you know, I'm never going to write off an entire episode. You know, we're Fear Her defenders. We're never going to write off an entire episode or an entire series.
We managed to slip the Absorb off the Slovene reference into this episode.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's like, as you say, like, you know what's really hot, Sam? You know what's so hot?
Oh, tell me.
Oh, God, I love it so much. A plurality of views.
Oh.
Oh, yes. A plurality of views. I love it so much. I find that so attractive. I love.
You love a
when
good
Doctor Who
discussion.
fans- I love when we get along. I love when, you know what I love when everyone's like, you know what, this whole show sucks. That's my favorite hot take on Doctor Who, is like all of it's bad. My favorite take though is that all of it's good.
Yes.
But genuinely, this era it's the one I find myself going back to the least.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's interesting because I would then probably say that Clara is probably one of my all-time favorite companions.
For sure.
And that's it. Like, so I think there's parts of this which I really, really love. Parts of it I don't think are as strong. There, I said it.
You said it. You said your
my
piece. Well, now
This is what gets us some 1 stars, I'm afraid.
I know. You came here for Polarized Reviews. Maybe it's that, and I think that this is gonna be. I think, you know, this episode's a lengthy one, and you've got to go back and rewatch the era yourself, my darlings, because there's so much to see. But there is so much to see in this era that compacting it into one episode of Wholala, you're just never going to properly soak it all in. So please just go and rewatch yourself some of Capaldi's episodes, Doctor Who. There's a really great recap, about half an hour sort of supercut of Capaldi's era. If you want a quick refresh, it's on YouTube. That is really, really good, and I would recommend going to watch that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a really great half-hour summary. You're going to listen to this and then watch that and be like, you dicks. I can see that this is a good era. There are, you know, we didn't even talk about, like, Capaldi's anti-war speech is one of the greatest moments of Who of all time. Mm-hmm. So, though this came off as a super negative review, don't take a single word we say seriously. You know, someone on TikTok recently said something that I think is so true, and they were like, these two just don't seem very intelligent, to put it politely.
They did. Someone, it was like a very politely put hate comment.
They were like, to put it politely,
these two just don't seem very smart. And I was like, ouch.
And it's like, you're right.
Yeah, you're
like,
not wrong.
We literally are not. We're not. Wholala is not a podcast for intellectuals. It's not a podcast for serious people.
It is a podcast that we want you to listen to and feel like you're having a conversation with us. It is a podcast.
Legally.
It is one of the podcasts.
Wholala is one of the podcasts.
Well, thank you for listening.
Come back next week.
Come back next week. Well, no, genuinely, thank you so much for listening to this quick whistle-stop tour, and I mean whistle-stop tour through the 12th Doctor's era. If you want to hear more episodes like this, you can go back and rewatch Here's What You Missed on Who, the 11th Doctor, which we posted earlier in the year.
Go back and have a look. We are getting you right up to speed as we go through to the 60th anniversary. The other one we think you'll really enjoy, which is a lot more cheerful, is our companion recap, part 1 and part 2, where we talk about all of the new Who companions. We've got more parts to complete of that, actually. We only got up to Miss Donna Noble, so we've got a bit further to go yet.
Oh, we've got plenty to go. Plenty to go. And as always, you can reach out to us on any of our social media platforms. That's Twitter or X if you fancy. We've got Instagram, you've got your TikTok, you've got your threads, all of which are at Wholala Pod. Please drop us a message, give us a shout, let us know what is your favourite moment from the 12th Doctor's era. Or maybe, go on, let's be haters together. What's your least favourite moment?
Oh, God, are you willing to ask that? And if you've got a moment, we would really, really appreciate if you are willing to go and give us a quick review wherever you listen to your podcast, whether that's Spotify, Apple. We really appreciate that. It means a lot and it helps us reach more listeners.
Thank you so much. Now, next week, we are going to be revisiting one of the episodes of the 12th Doctor's era, and we want to hear from you. Which episode do you think deserves a revisit on Wholala?
Let us know, and we will try and be more positive.
Well, thank you so much, as always, for listening, and we will see you next week.
We'll see you next week, my loves. Be well, be safe, look after each other.
And don't be lasagna.
Bye.